peasant uprisings against colonialism and feudal exploitation is the motive force of Indian history, pulling the nation along a tortuous road to freedom. Winter mist hung low over Chotanagpur as we made our way into the heart of this plateau, the ancient home of the Munda people. This mountain highland, making up the southern districts of the Bihar province in eastern India, had been a storm center of peasant rebellions throughout the 19th century. The overwhelming majority of the Munda people are engaged in agriculture, having a distinct and fascinating folk tradition of their own. A fiercely independent people, the Mundas have made rich contributions to the fighting heritage of anti-imperialist and anti-feudal struggles of the Indian masses, winning their respect and forging a deep unity with all the nationalities of India. The peasants of Chotanagpur are, however, still not a free people, and beneath all this festive mirth, there prevails an uneasy calm in Munda society. Land for the tiller continues to remain the crux of the Indian problem. The landlords and moneylenders, who form a tiny minority, own over 70% of the land and command absolute economic and political power. What is the answer to this problem? We asked the peasant masses of Chotanagpur, and everyone, without exception, pointed to the Birsa uprising of the 19th century. Birsa was the son of a poor peasant. One day, while Birsa worked deep in the forest, his father was dragged away by the landlord's men, leaving Birsa and his mother helpless in poverty and want. Such incidents left a deep impression on young Birsa's mind, giving rise to a fierce hatred for the landlords. The stories of the Kol and Sardar rebellions, narrated by the village elders, conjured up images of valor and heroism, firing the ideals of liberty and honor deep within him. Fierce hatred for the ruling class and the long militant tradition of his people combined to make Birsa a restless youth, determined to tear down the shackles of slavery and bondage. Birsa stepped into life, and his ideas matured through experience. He made a small but sure beginning, propagating new ideas among the people around him. Exasperated by the oppression and persecution of his people, Birsa openly advocated insurrection against feudal exploitation and British rule. To put an end to exploitation of man by man, he called for the extermination of the landlord class and establishment of people's power, overthrowing the British Raj. These views of Birsa gave expression to the inner feelings of the broad peasant masses, and as days passed, he became increasingly involved in politics. His words spread far and wide, and before long, a new rebellion became imminent in Chota Nagpur. Birsa found an able organizer in Gaya Munda. A poor peasant, Gaya Munda too had suffered much at the hands of the landlords. Hate and anger smoldering within him, Gaya Munda joined Birsa, and together they organized. These rallies launched the movement, and peasant fury burst upon the landlords. But lacking in experience, Birsa erred in tactics. He became heavily marked by the landlords and the British authorities. The landlords, facing total rout, conspired with the British on Birsa's arrest. One night in 1895, Birsa was arrested and carried away to a British prison. The return of the landlords during Birsa's absence and a crippling famine cast severe gloom over the Munda people. anxiously, they waited for the return of their leader. (1897). Chota Nagpur breathed again as Birsa Munda rejoined his comrades in arms in a secret hideout. Fresh preparations for a fresh uprising got underway. But this time, the leaders had changed their methods. Gone were the days of open rallies and exposed confrontations. This time, the movement proceeded underground. The peasant leadership, under Birsa's guidance, adopted a hit-and-run policy, laying particular emphasis on organizing the armed partisan forces of the people. Responding to this call, the village artisans worked round the clock, redoubling the production of traditional weapons. Peasant youths, inspired by the dream of liberty and freedom, joined in large numbers. Armed to the hilt, the human volcano of Chota Nagpur stirred again. Addressing the peasants in the sacred grove of their forefathers, Birsa and Gaya explained to the fighters the strategies of war. Rely on the ignorance of the enemy. Draw the British army deep into the forest. Strike suddenly and surely. The rebels listened with charged morale. Liberty or death was their fighting pledge. With the dreams of a new age, they burst into action. Birsa Munda had sparked off the uprising. The prairie fire engulfed the entire plateau. In a protracted war to change the world, the undaunted peasants marched under Birsa's leadership. In the year 1900, Birsa Munda, the great martyr and heroic son of the Indian people, died fighting in British custody. But it takes more than guns to kill a man. Birsa Munda lives. He never died, say the Munda peasants. The war that Birsa began still rages in the countryside. And to the rising generation, the elders solemnly say, imitate my Birsa.